All right, here's a little painting exercise that I want y'all to do this week. I have a couple of 3 colors. Any red, yellow, blue combo will do. I am using the Spectrum Red, my Cadmium Free Lemon, and my Ultramarine Blue. I've got them all labeled right here. Gonna be using flat brushes, probably like these 3 right here. So got my water, palette, brushes, rag. Make like a little donut or pineapple ring. That little inner circle is a mess up, so you can ignore that. But don't forget to label the opacity key on there. All right, now I'm just gonna go ahead and start. This is a good place to practice your flats. So I need a little bit of water to get the gouache moving. So I found that I get the paper moving, not the paper, the paint moving a little bit more. I had to add some water to it. Sorry, I paused there for a second. But what I'm trying to say is you want to move the paint around a little bit more, so you just add a little bit of water. And don't forget your spritzer. But go ahead and like spread it out a little bit more. I noticed last week that some of y'all were painting kind of watercolory, kind of thin, and that could, that could at some point could beat up the paper. So you have to kind of be a little confident with coming in with watery passages. You don't want to do it over and over and over again, because it's just gonna make the paper deteriorate at some point. So now I'm gonna try to combine these two, and I think it'd be like a good idea to paint the yellow first. And maybe I'll spread the yellow out a little bit more, because I could use the base of the yellow to get a nice even green. So spread the yellow out more because it's a lighter color. Remember to squeeze the pigment off your brush as much as possible, and then clean it off. Just getting all that water off. Now I'm going to take my red and change my light. And see if I can blend the 2 colors together. So I'm going to blend the red into the yellow to try to get that orange that I'm looking for. But I kind of have to be careful. I don't want to go too far out. And I might want to start mixing a little bit on my palette. Because I do want to still try to get a nice even blend. But even if I don't get an even blend, that's okay. doesn't have to be quite so even like it is here. You know, you get some streaks, and that's fine. I have to clean my brush off just a little bit. So there, I'm getting that blend. I'm not going to linger too much though. It's actually, I feel like it's not orange enough. Maybe I need a little bit more. Need some more orange. Don't linger, just kind of so I don't want to forget my yellow-orange color there too. Now I'm just kind of gingerly brushing over. Oops, got a little streak there. So maybe I'm doing a little too much. Hopefully with the opacity of the yellow, you know, I could probably come back and still blend that out. And that's because I'm using that cadmium-free. Cadmium-free yellows are opaque. They're just as opaque as the regular cadmiums. So that's not bad. So I'm going to go ahead and add the blue. You know, I want this orange here to kind of match up with the blue. So I want to put the blue right here. I want the yellow to match up with the purple. So hopefully that'll work out. I might have to go a little bit more yellow here. So here's the blue. And I don't really think that the blue spectrum, or I'm sorry, the red spectrum red, it's a great red, but it's also not the best for mixing. But we might be able to get a nice purple out. Maybe if I leave it kind of watery. Let's see what happens, because I need a little bit more red here. However way that you need to achieve that blend is fine. So don't want to go too far over. Grab a little bit more blue. I keep squeezing the paint off of my brush. Just real fast brush strokes. Grab some red. Maybe I could get that transition a little bit smoother. Now I want to make sure I get this red across from this green here. The other way I could probably approach this is to, you know, go ahead and mix my green on the palette. Let's see how that works out for me. So I get this nice cad yellow. I'll try to get like a nice even amount of ultramarine blue. You know, 50-50. Looks kind of pale a little bit, so I'll go a little bit more blue, and like right here, right across from the red. I'll stop there. Mix a little blue into that, a little bit more blue-green, so I could kind of transition a little bit. And I used to do illustrations with acrylic, so I get kind of used to painting colors next to each other, just because acrylic paint doesn't blend as well. So we get a little wet on wet here, not so much here, obviously. I'm gonna try to blend that out. So I'm kind of, I let my brush be wet, so I'm just kind of melting the yellow and the green together and pulling more pigment off. And painting the yellow into the blue to kind of get that transition there. You know, if you want like a perfect circle, I could put like tape or Frisket on there. That would work. But now, for those of you that, you know, need help with color theory, you could, you know, this will help you, you know, your complementary colors. Like if you want to make this red more earth tone, then we'll add the green to it. If you want to make that green less punchy, then you want to add some red to it. For those of you that need something like this is a good thing to have on you. But also, like, we can kind of set a mood with these three colors. You know, try the color wheel in different three colors than I'm doing, you know, and see what that's like. All right, so like now we got change my lighting a little bit. We got all these colors. That's a good enough wheel right there, color wheel. And see, like, it's just some streaking, and that's fine. But like now that we have all these colors on the palette, let's do a little like swatching. You know, grab the yellows and the reds, make some oranges with this. See what your oranges look like. And try not to be too watery. It could be watery on some passages. You know, see what it looks like with nice amount of thick gouache. Nice opaque swatching there. So remember I said, like, you want to tone down that green. Like, let's add a little bit of red to it. Well, we ended up, that red's so punchy that we ended up toning down the red to like almost kind of like a dusty orange, earthy reddish orange, burnt sienna almost. But I just want to take a little bit of that and add it to that green, and we get kind of a nice olive green color. So do some swatching on the side there. I think we can make a better olive green. We get a nice amount of yellow. A nice amount of blue. So I think the ultramarine blue is it's a good blue. It's great for shadows, but I don't think it helps make good purples. And the green's okay. So usually, like, I usually have another blue in there, but I could make a nice I could still make a perfectly fine small little study with that, with these 3 colors, and that's enough to get my blacks with it. So that's a nice green. It's not as, I can't get like the kind of emerald green that I would want to get. I just want to add just a little bit of red. And that's a nice earthy kind of olive green there. So that's just me kind of adding, and it might almost look brown next to the other green. You know, if I put it next to a red, it might look less brown. Looks more green. So if I cover that up, looks green. Let's go ahead and make a purple. See what different shades of purple we can make with it. So you can like do like some watery passages. So that's gonna have that white interact. There's something you could try too, is if you don't, you know, sometimes you could do, you know, 2 colors mixed together on the brush, on one brush. You can take the 2 colors, put it next to each other, and right down the middle, if I pick it up, then I can have a 2-tone brush stroke right there. It's a little watery. If I did it a bit more creamy, it would work, but I think you could still kind of get the gist. It's kind of yellow on one side. It's kind of turning a little peach color because of the white underneath. But what we could do is let's try, might need to get a couple more brushes out. I think a good round brush. Do some really quick tree studies. And we'll do them like I get my flat brushes. But yeah, I get like my brushes I have good control with. And we're gonna do like we did the color swatching with the balls, but we could do the color swatching, you know, with just some basic trees. And we could do it with, you know, see if you can do more than 3 colors. Like, let's start with the red. You can start off a little watery if you want, but you kind of want to, you know, start off with just, and this is good for like what watercolor artists would do as well, but you could, you know, just draw in look at the big shape of the tree. Get yourself a photo reference if you need to. You know, there's the canopy right there of the tree. With the nice flat, I could, you know, paint in the trunk. Use a little bit more paint down at the bottom of the group of leaves so it looks like that's where less light is hitting, of course. And I'm imagining the light coming in, the light sources from the right. And just paint that shadow in. I could even like paint in some wherever, like I said, the light source is. I'm gonna use that as a base to just get a little thicker paint, more kind of tube textured, and put in some creamy passages to kind of give you that kind of shadow look to it. All right, give it a try with different trees. So might not get anywhere with the yellow. Let's see what that looks like. You might have to go with like orange or something like that. But, if you don't want to do swatching with those render spheres, and you get good enough to, practice painting some trees, they're just big shape clusters. I'm going to give this tree a nice kind of set of foliage down at the bottom of it. I started off watery. If you want, grab your brush. It's a good place to practice your round. I'm gonna grab a little thicker paint. This would be a good place to practice going thick over thin. It's the same color. See if you can get some control. With that brush that you're using, the round. Kind of paint some leaves in. This tree needs a couple more branches on it to kind of make it a little bit more believable. So, there we go. Let's come back to that yellow. See if I can get anything out with the cadmium. I'm not sure if it's going to work by itself like that. So it's still kind of disappearing into it. So definitely probably want to get a little bit of orange on there maybe. But let's see how it dries in a little bit. Let me go ahead and make a green one. So you got to remember, try to mix enough color. Try to mix enough pigment together. And sometimes I find myself, I didn't mix enough color together, or I definitely didn't do it creamy enough, like I used too much water probably. So I'm gonna like pick up some of that red that's already on there so I get that nice earthy tone. But now I'm gonna add a little bit of water, just a touch. Remember, like kind of like dipping your toe in. And we'll paint another tree. So I've got some photo references. Pinterest is a good place for it. I'm not trying to do any fancy trees though, so look out for that. Any obscure angles, not right now anyways. You know what, let's try it. Let's start it off with I've got this brush loaded, so I'm not gonna do anything with it. Just sit tight for a second. And let me see, I'll come over here. Do one more tree over here. Put my swatch down for it. Might as well. A little watery. But I think this time I'm going to start with the trunk of the tree. Do some of those branches. This will be a good place to figure out how fine of a line you can get with some of your brushes. And you want to remember that some branches come down. It's not a bad idea to just paint a wild tree limb that comes all the way from one side to the next. It kind of helps sell the illusion of depth and form, more 3D-ness to it. So that's not bad. I'm gonna do the same thing like with the light source and everything. Keep it all over here. Nice shadow. Then I can come grab this guy and just like, maybe I'll grab a little bit more, put a little bit more blue in there. Get a little bit more thick paint. But just kind of come in and just cluster that canopy together. So if you're gonna paint some trees, grab a couple photo reference, do just kind of swatching with it. Nothing too crazy. This is kind of like a watercolor kind of approach to painting trees, which is clustering those kind of shapes together. It's good study. It's good practice. You could, if you want to, you could fit in, another tree. Let's do like an orange tree. Maybe I'll add a little red. like for kind of that variation in color. And if you have some floating leaves, that's fine too. Maybe I'll add a little, just a touch of red. And I'm still gonna go a little bit thicker with the paint. But another thing that I kind of want y'all to do, like, is, you know, label all this stuff. Keep track of it. You could write on here, you know, here's, you know, the spectrum. And you'll see that my pen's a little dry, but you'll see that you know, you could, if you want, you can use like whatever tool you want. Try different ones. Let's see. You get a little bit more freedom with the gouache to do different things on top of it. Let's see here. So like right here on the dark blue, on the dark gouache, you get like a light color pencil. This is a Gouache watercolor pencil, so the lead's a little softer on it. And I'm gonna write, you know, it shows up really well on there. White gel pen would as well. I'm not a fan of gel pens though, so. But if you're like real gingerly with it, push the pen, because I find these hard to use a little bit. But yeah, you can make these gel pens work on top. Or like a nice fine point acrylic kind of marker will do fine too. All right, so that's like one thing I want y'all to do. Definitely, like, this is your exercise for today, so you kind of like doubling up on homework, but you have plenty of time, hopefully. And you know, for the second part, all right, so for the second part of this, like, not this, like for homework, I still want y'all to do like a black and white painting, but we're gonna introduce a little bit of color. So we're gonna do a black and white painting, but on top of a base color. So this is like orange underneath. There's a little bit of orange peeking through, but it's all black and white. And I'll show you how we can get that started. So this is a little bit experimental, but I think, you know, it's in the sketchbook, and this is something that you probably heard me say James Gurney's name a lot, but this is something that he does, in his sketchbooks as well. But basically, like, you're gonna do underpainting on the page. You know, if you could use watercolor and you could do the gouache, but it's gonna reactivate and it's not gonna work. So you need something a little bit more permanent, like ink. Like a permanent waterproof ink would work. Like if you wanted to cover this all in a certain tone with ink, that'd be fine, but it'd have to be obviously not black. But I think one thing you could do is, you know, is give it a coat of acrylic paint, but it would be very helpful if you had some like matte, any kind of matte medium would work. And, you know, I'm gonna take this color here, this red oxide, and, you know, I'll use this as an underpaint. Usually I like doing like yellows or oranges. In fact, let me go ahead and I'll do I like these basics for stuff like this. And I don't need this no more. We're done with that. So what I'm gonna do is I have my palette pad, and I'll just add a little bit of yellow, a touch of the oxide. You don't have to do these colors. If you want to do like a light blue, that's a little bit more in a touch, right? If you want to do like a light blue, purple would be kind of cool. Red might be a little too intense. But anyways, I'm gonna take, like, I could squeeze out this matte medium. Maybe just take out the matte gel. If you don't have this stuff, you know, just a little bit of acrylic paint would work. I think like the matte is a little bit kind of matches. The matte matches the you know, the texture of the gouache. So that's why this is why I like to do the matte. And, you know, to tell you the truth, I got this idea from, like I said, from James Gurney. So maybe I'll just do like just a touch mixing. Wow, look how strong that is. So that's a good color right there. It's got a little bit of the matte in there. And, you know, use a palette knife if you can. I have better ones, but this is the closest one to me. So that's a good, like, almost yellow golden color. I like the way it's like shines beneath the white there. But since it has the matte medium on it, let's see if I could just spread this out. Something like that. Doesn't need to be too thick. If it's thick, you know, see what happens. See my paper starting to buckle a little bit, so I will, maybe before you do this, be a good idea to, you know, use some clips or something to just hold the page in place. Trying to frame it. Give it a border. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, since it's just kind of a experimentation. And I'm trying to scrape off some of the excess. I don't mind like there being some brush marks there. Go ahead ahead and take care of that. But, you know, don't mix this up with your gouache. It's going to ruin your gouache. Don't mix this up with your gouache brushes. You know, maybe even use a different rag to clean off the acrylic paint. Let's see if I can push that pigment around a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. I don't mind having some thick paint on there. Just wiped it off for a little bit more control. And, you know, I like sometimes those textures popping through. And if you're really good, like when you do like your traditional illustration work, like you could use kind of like the texture to your advantage. Like if I draw this out and I put an underpainting in, like why not paint in like some of the, you know, trunks of the trees and other things like that. Like I could go ahead and get its texture, like if I wanted to already. I could use like not gouache, gesso to get that texture, but that's not what I'm looking for right now. But it's something to think about, because it's, you know, all about sometimes making your life easy. There is some like plein air competitions where you have to come in with the pretty much a blank piece of paper or something like that, and I'll let you show up with those pre-drawn or anything like that. But yeah, I could use this. This will be like a really nice good black and white study, but kind of setting a mood as well. And as you can see here, this is all done on the orange acrylic background. Same formula. You know, I didn't like measure it out or anything, like the medium I used, but it's just enough. And I'll give you a link to this video if I still have it as well. But what's nice about this is like I was able to, you know, I have my watercolor pencils that I could come in and draw on top of this with my watercolor pencil when this dries. And if I'm not happy with the drawing, I could just take like a wet, you know, piece of paper. I can't do it now because it's still wet, but I could take a wet piece of paper. If I'm not happy with the drawing, I could just smear off my watercolor pencil drawing without messing up the underpainting. That's how like nice and quick it comes off. It's forgivable, it's experimental, but I don't know how archival it is, because we are taking gouache and putting it on top of acrylic. Typically you want the paper to absorb the gouache a little bit, but with the acrylic it's kind of blocking it from getting absorbed into the paper. Now there might be some pores that allow it to happen, but as far as archival goes, I don't know. And it's probably actually not a problem, like if I was to do like maybe like a varnish on top of it. All right, that's, you know, I think that's plenty. You know, thank you for the kind words about me not being there today. I appreciate it. But I think it's good I was able to put this together for you. I hope I could upload it in the next hour or something like that. All right, give that a try. See y'all next week.